It would seem that the world can only take one African crisis in at a time. Niger is now in sharp focus and Darfur has been knocked into the background. Yet the conflict between Arab militias, believed to be backed by the Sudanese government, and the rebel Sudanese Liberation Army has claimed at least 200,000 lives and scattered 2 million people from their homes, most of whom are still displaced people. Former BBC war reporter Martin Bell and one-time independent MP now has a new role as the UNICEF Ambassador for Humanitarian Emergencies. He's just led a delegation to Darfur, and this is the film Newsnight asked him to make of his journey.
If you think that if you stop looking at something it will go away, then think again and look again, because it won't. The Abu Shouk camp near El Fasher in North Darfur is home of sorts to 57,000 people, with another 22,000 in an overflow camp nearby. The numbers are still rising of people driven from their villages by the Arab militias, the Janjaweed, or who have fled from them in fear. Almost 2 million in Darfur, with another 200,000 across the border in Chad. The government insists that people are now beginning to return to their homes. The evidence of our eyes contradicts that, as do the refugees themselves, like the tribal chiefs in Abu Shouk.
To
tell you the truth, as for return, I believe we will need many things which haven't happened yet, and actually may not be possible. How soon security will come, I've no idea. Ask the people who started the war. They're the ones who know if peace is near or not.
When peace prevails, we'll need reconstruction and compensation as well. Compensate us for our assets, which were looted and burned. Only then shall we return to our villages.
So along with all the other issues, drought, desertification, the legacy of the ethnic tensions, the terrible things that happened over those 2.5 years, there is additionally an issue now of compensation. But at the heart of it all, lies security.
What has happened in a year is that a temporary refuge has turned into a conurbation, with brick walls in place around the plastic and canvas. The people needed a peace, but got a war instead. Needed a settlement, but got only settlements. Keith Mackenzie is UNICEF's man in Darfur.
And look at these walls. This looks like a permanent township.
You're absolutely right. It's getting to look like a semi-permanent village, a large township almost. But I think that adds to the sense of security of the people who are living here.
But it makes them more reluctant to leave.
Makes them more reluctant to. True. So when the time does come, I think we've spoken to quite a few groups of people, and they have just one prerequisite to going back home, and that's security.
That's all.
That's security. That's all that's stopping them.
Wells are being drilled 100, 200, even 300 feet deep, with unknowable effects on the water table. Some of the early boreholes are already drying up, but the supply of water roots these people even more permanently in this territory.
All hands to the pump.
Here again is the paradox of the relief effort. Why should people go home when they have water in these camps but not in their villages? Food here but not there. And above all, security here but not there.
There's a tremendous amount of insecurity. In fact, I think Darfur today is probably more insecure for the humanitarian community than it was a year ago. A year ago, the conflict was, to some extent, traditional conflict between military forces. What you're seeing in Darfur today is banditry. It's anarchy, it's banditry, it's a total breakdown of law and order. So in fact, it's a little more insecure for the humanitarian worker today in Darfur than it was a year ago.
The delegation includes the actress Sophie Okonedo, star of the film Hotel Rwanda, and newest recruit to the UNICEF Supporters Club. A Londoner partly of Nigerian origin, she brings a fresh eye and understanding to the plight of these 2 million.
I think when I've watched before on the news about people being displaced, I hadn't really got it. That losing their land is like losing part of their soul. And it's so different for us in the West. We don't really understand that attachment to the earth. And I've been very moved by that.
UNICEF has established child-friendly spaces here. They're needed. 1 million of Darfur's displaced are under 18. More than 500,000 are under 5. Children with hope draw large images of peace, like flowers. Children in fear draw small images of war, like armored cars. After school, newly arrived children spoke to us about their experiences through a UNICEF interpreter.
A helicopter came and shot at our village. We ran away and they stole everything. The Janjaweed came. They killed my father. They took everything and they led my brother away.
They went to my aunt's house and stole her thermos flask, her radio and her earrings. My grandmother pleaded with them to let my aunt keep her earrings, but they said no. Later on, she called them bastards.
It is a construction song. The children are singing about building up their camp. They get a better education here than they did in their villages. Another reason to stay. But is it their future to be permanent refugees? And is it Darfur's to be an African Gaza Strip on an epic scale? The answers depend on events beyond these tents. Our delegation is flown to rebel territory in a 20-year-old Russian helicopter chartered by the United Nations. Below us lie Abu Shuk and its satellite camp. More people to the square mile here than in Manhattan. It's just a short distance to the empty quarter, more like the empty 3/4 or 99/100ths of North Darfur. It is a harsh environment at the best of times, which this is not. Nothing lives here and nothing grows, except the numbers of displaced people. If fewer villages have been burned and abandoned this year than last, it is in part because there are fewer villages left to burn or abandon. We're heading northwest, across the ever southward creeping Sahara, to within 50 miles of the border with Chad. A ceasefire is in place, and on a good day, without sandstorms or skirmishes, UNICEF is licensed to travel from one side to the other. Welcome to Musbat, a rebel-held stronghold, a place that redefines the middle of nowhere. 3 years of drought and more than 2 of armed conflict are impacting on each other lethally. In a society where wealth is measured in livestock, animals are threatened first and then people.
Good to see you again. Thank you for coming.
Suleiman Jamus has traveled through the night to meet us. It's safer that way, he says. Described as the humanitarian coordinator of the Sudan Liberation Army, he is more than that. He's a politician, and the soldiers defer to him. He sets out the rebels' demands, the disbanding of the Janjaweed, the sharing of wealth and power, and the bringing of war criminals to justice.
We are not keen to continue fighting, but what we need is this true peace achieved by the international community and guarded by the international community. And we took weapons because we were marginalized and we were about to be smashed out of our area. And we defended ourselves to this stage. And now the world is aware of our problem, and we need them to solve the problem. But they should know that since the Janjaweed and this government is still in power, it is very difficult to achieve peace in Darfur.
Another day, another flight. This one on a UN Beechcraft to Niala, capital of the south. We're on a mission to meet the governor, Khartoum's man in Darfur. The landscape below is the scene of some serious ceasefire violations. SLA ambushes provoke massive government counterstrikes, and still more people are displaced. The Otesh camp outside Niala is home to 27,000 of them, and Kalma, which last year held 50,000, now holds 150,000, the biggest refugee camp in the world.
I had the honor to meet you a year ago, and it is an honor to be received by you again.
But the business is the peace process, and the governor is unexpectedly positive.
I think the situation is very good now. And I think also the humanitarian situation is improving, and there is a good effort which was done by UNICEF and the other NGOs so that to protect children. And I think within 2 or 3 months all the situation in the south of Darfur will be, and all Darfur will be inshallah very, very good. Thank you very much for your visit.
Much depends on the African Union deploying here on its first ever full peacekeeping mission. It has 3,000 men on the ground, increasing by the end of next month to 7,500, including 3 battalions from Nigeria and 3 from Rwanda, with strong support from South Africa. That's not much in a territory the size of France, but it has started well and includes a contingent of civil police to reassure the displaced people in the camps. Even in Africa, things don't always go from bad to worse. And the Nigerian commander is a living symbol of reconciliation. 38 years ago, he fought on the losing side in his country's civil war.
Well, I would say the chances are 70%, 80% chances of success in this mission. And I think if we're able to get the troops, we're able to get the equipment, we should be able to succeed.
One last journey to the rebel enclave in the moonscape of the Jebel Mara Mountains north of Niala. They're short of everything here: food, water, and above all, peace.
Tough territory, huh?
Yes, tough territory.
And they're really suffering.
Yeah, because it is too difficult.
What they do have is a small clinic, again uniquely supplied by UNICEF.
Because of such attacks, and they were treated in this place.
So this is the nearest thing to a field hospital you have?
Exactly.
That's all you have?
Exactly.
The medicines can come in by helicopter, but the food aid can only be delivered by airdrops, and there's no sign of that. Yet the people here surprised us. Here they were in the heart of Africa, in the midst of their own struggle for survival, expressing sympathy with the British people.
We condemn the bombings that took place in London and extend our condolences to all the victims. All of us here, leaders and people alike, want to say to your people that we feel your pain, as we too have experienced the killing of innocent people among us, in our case by the Janjaweed.
The visit ends at another of the children's play spaces, and there are things that UNICEF ambassadors do which reporters can't. Some of these children are orphans, many are refugees, all are at increasing risk from the war and the drought around them. They do not deserve and cannot afford a future like their past. Back near the camp, it is late afternoon. The women left early in the morning to gather firewood for cooking or for bartering. 2 of them have babies on their backs. They have walked some 14 miles for these bundles of twigs and some grasses. Their daily hardship would be, for most people, unendurable. Darfur remains the world's greatest humanitarian crisis, Niger and the tsunami region included. It is beginning to look perpetual. The suffering in these camps, now in its 2nd year, is a standing, searing, scathing indictment of the evil which made it happen and of the indifference which let it happen, and still does.
Martin Bell in Darfur.